Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's Dr. Nicole. The 7 steps or shifts that will change your relationship life. That's what we're talking about. Again, I'm Dr. Nicole, your boundaries and feminine energy queen. And I'm actually going to be going straight to my book today. All right. If you don't have it already, you need to pick it up. The Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint for Women Who Are Finally Ready to Win at Love. And I take women at different stages, whether they're just getting out of a relationship, whether they're in a relationship that they want to improve, whether they're looking intentionally for a healthy relationship. This book has what women need to be able to finally win at love. Having those fulfilling connections, feeling desired, being able to communicate their needs, the whole nine, right? But there's a particular section that is the basis of me working with women and the basis of what women will need to make those shifts and to be able to stop going to the red flags, the toxic men, the toxic traits, and to be able to gravitate towards the green flags, as we call them, the healthy relationships and the healthy ways of seeing themselves. Okay. So you want to take note of these 7 steps. I call them steps, but really, if you think about what you need to do to be different in your relationships and how you think about your relationships, including first and foremost your relationship with yourself, you need to really think about them as shifts. You're shifting your perspective, you're shifting how you view yourself, you're shifting your way of thinking and what you're doing. You're shifting your behavior. Okay. So, number one is we are trying to avoid this pattern of toxic relationships that so many women have, right? So the first thing you have to do, and I'm going straight from the book, you guys, I'm going straight from the book, right? The first thing you have to do is decide, right? Everything starts with a mindset. You literally have to decide that you are going to heal. And that is for all women, even women who are married, women who've been in relationships for years, right? I'm not just talking about the single women. All women, most likely, 95% of women need to heal in some way from some sort of relationship trauma, especially if you know that you've chosen the wrong relationships before, or in your current relationship, you're not getting your needs met. That is because you need to heal. So you have to consciously decide that you are going to begin the journey of healing your past trauma and knowing that the responsibility is on you to become whole and happy. Right? You can't put that on somebody else. That they are the cherry on top, but the responsibility is on you to start the healing journey. Now, a lot of times, when red flags for yourself are if you're in a stable period in your relationship, or you've been in a stable relationship for however amount of time, or you have people who are stable that are attracted to you, but you find yourself rejecting them or saying it's boring or that you're not attracted or something is missing, that's usually a sign that you have relationship trauma to where you are attracted to the chaos. You're attracted to some sort of trauma bonding, some sort of pattern where you have to prove yourself, or you feel like if the emotions aren't always intense and on 10, then that means it's not, there's no attraction, or that the relationship isn't good. Okay. So 9 times out of 10, if stability feels boring or unattractive to you, there's a lot of healing around being attracted to toxic relationships that you need. Other things, signs that you need to heal: you're afraid to speak up in your relationship. You're afraid that you are going to be rejected if you speak up. You're afraid to let your guard down and be vulnerable. Because as we say every video, vulnerability is the key to connection. Or you're afraid to allow yourself to sit in your feminine energy. You feel like that's another form of having your guard up, right? You're afraid that you're going to be taken advantage of. That's because your past history has said you're going to be taken advantage of. But that doesn't mean that's going to be your future, especially if you start on your healing journey, right? So deciding to heal is step number one. And as you're healing, you're going to become more aware of those red flags and those toxic patterns that you've been engaged in. Okay. And a lot of those red flags, I know we talk about red flags with other people. A lot of the red flags are first and foremost with yourself. Are you rejecting stability? Are you drawn to toxic, unhealthy patterns, right? You got to look at the red flags within yourself. So that's shift number one. Shift number two is really tapping into that deep self love. Okay. I know we say it all the time, but it's much deeper than a word, right? You really have to be honest about your self esteem. Okay. And I say here, assess your self esteem and your self worth. All right. People usually stay in relationships that are not good for them. Well, first of all, they get into relationships that are not good for them, but they stay in relationships that are not good for them because their self esteem and their sense of self worth has been shattered. Somehow they have created or they have developed the idea that who they are as a person is not worthy unless they're attached to this other person. And that's a very um treacherous road to go down, because you start attaching your self-worth to other people, even people who may mistreat you, right? So really looking at the fact that a healthy relationship first starts first and foremost with having a healthy relationship with yourself. Okay? That's looking at yourself in the mirror, assessing your strengths, qualities that you love about yourself, things that maybe you don't like as much, but that you accept about yourself because you have compassion for yourself and you allow yourself to give yourself some grace and be gentle with yourself, right? So, all of those are the keys. And one of the things in the Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint book that comes with it, one of the bonuses is the self love workbook. And this takes you through a whole month long series of exercises where you start to really do the things that are going to build, rebuild, or in some cases, just build your self love from the ground up. Affirmations that you need to say, things that you need to do for yourself, ways that you need to set boundaries that are going to demonstrate your self love for yourself. Okay. So that is really key. Assessing where you are. Assessing means looking honestly, because a lot of people are out here saying, "Oh, I love myself. Yes, yes, yes," but they're not acting as if they love themselves. Or deep down, there's a different feeling that they have. Okay. So, really being honest about where you are. Sometimes you have to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your self esteem. And if your self esteem and your self worth is not as high as you want it to be, it's okay. It's just a sign to go back and do some of that deep self love work. Okay. And the self love workbook that comes with my Boundaries to Bliss book is really, really going to help you do that. Okay. Don't forget, everybody, if you are liking the content, hit the like button, share this video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and make sure you sign up for notifications. Okay. And you'll get the link for this book. The link for this book is right below the video. All right. The third shift or the third step that is going to totally change and transform your relationship life is doing, we talked about what you need to do, but one thing you have to undo is you have to unlearn all of the bad examples of relationships that you may have observed or that were modeled for you growing up and even now. Because let's face it, the media thrives off of unhealthy, toxic relationships. Most of the reality shows that you see that involve couples, even if the whole relationship isn't toxic, what they're showing as quote reality is very toxic. Okay. So you're going to have to do a lot of unlearning. First and foremost, unlearning things that you learned that you saw growing up, right? Um, it could have been divorce. It could have been long term relationships where there was a lack of respect, where there was a lot of cheating or manipulation or gaslighting, right? Or emotional or financial abuse, right? Um, and while we may sort of put certain people that we grew up with, we may love them and be connected to them. Sometimes we have to be honest that a lot of what many of the people around us were doing in their relationships was not healthy. And these are not things that we want to carry on and continue, right? So if you were around people that thought it was okay to not speak up and to build up resentment and act passive aggressively in the relationships, you want to unlearn that. If you were around people that felt that the only way to express anger was to explode and be angry and lash out, you're going to have to relearn that, right? If you observed, like I said earlier, infidelity, lying, lack of accountability, stepping out, being toxic, um, being trauma bonded, right? Meaning that the only reason we're together and love each other is because of all the bad stuff that we've been through, right? That's a trauma bond. Or being codependent, which is like you are only valuable because of what you can do for the other person, and you need them to be in a sick role or a helpless role or a role where you have to fix them. And that's how you get your self-worth, right? That's codependency. So you really have to be willing to undo those patterns or those things that you observed growing up that may not have been healthy or that were not healthy, right? And that means even if they were people that you loved, if you know that what they were doing, and for a lot of people in our families, they were doing the best that they could do. They didn't know any better. They didn't have all of this information teaching them about toxic relationships and all of these things, right? Healthy communication. People didn't necessarily have access to therapy and being able to quote work on themselves, right? So it's not necessarily to criticize them or means that you don't have a connection to them, but it means that you don't have to carry on those same patterns. Okay? So there's a lot of undoing, and some of it is undoing what you're consuming currently, because let me tell you, there are some shows and some things I've seen on in the media that is very toxic about how you're supposed to communicate in a relationship, about how you're supposed to get your needs met, about how you're supposed to deal with conflict and disagreement. Okay? So there's a lot of unlearning, right? That's step number 2. Number 3 is unlearning the bad examples from the past and currently. The fourth thing is really taking time to be intentional. Knowing what you want in a relationship. That takes being intentional, right? This is part of continuing to get to know yourself and being honest with what you want at this stage in a relationship. If you do not want to be married, do not pretend that that's what you want, because you're going to feel trapped when you get in that situation. Okay. There's no right or wrong around what you actually want. But what is required is a level of honesty about where you are right now. Maybe you're just starting a certain part of your healing journey around relationships, and you really need to cultivate a relationship with yourself first, as opposed to trying to jump in with someone else, right? Maybe you have a pattern of being in casual relationships because you've been afraid of commitment, and you're ready to learn how to commit because what you really want is a lasting bond and connection with someone that you do life with, right? As we say, like you want to do life with someone. And so you need not do what's comfortable, which is tell yourself, oh, I don't care. I'll just hook up with this person. Or even worse, I'll just, be the side chick. He's married. Who cares? Because I just want a part time lover. Right. But A lot of times when people do that, what they are really saying is, I am afraid of rejection. I am afraid of um, feeling being given the sign that I'm not good enough, which is what I feel deep down inside. Okay. So, in this step of really knowing what you want in a relationship, again, it's a level of honesty with yourself about where you are at this stage and what you want for yourself. Okay. And that means um, you're going to have to go out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone most likely got you to the place that you are now that you no longer want to be in. Okay. So, step number 5 that is going to totally shift and transform your relationship life. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Step number 5 is learning to choose a healthy partner. We've been leading up to that in the other steps, but really learning what are the green flags. All right. Looking at, we've talked about signs of toxic relationships, but what are signs of healthy relationships? And some questions that you can ask yourself about any potential partner are, first and foremost, how do they treat you? How do they talk to you? Are they consistent? Are they able to follow through and be respectful? Those are basics, right? How do they handle their own emotions? Are they mature or are they selfish? Are they giving, right? And I'm talking about a balance. You don't want someone who doesn't have healthy boundaries, to where they're so giving, they lose themselves and then they resent you for it, right? So we're talking about, are they mature? What kind of relationship do they have with their family? And if they have had unhealthy relationships or currently have unhealthy relationships, what are they doing to ensure that they're not going to continue those same behaviors and continue those same generational patterns? All right. Are they willing to grow and work on themselves? We all have work to do on ourselves, but it's the willingness to change, break some of those chains that matters, right? What is their character? Are they consistent and trustworthy? Are they able to do they have a sense of themselves, right? For women, we tend to be attracted to ambition. One reason we're attracted to ambition is it's a sign that we'll be protected, but also it's a sign that a person has a sense of who they are, right? They're not just floating through life. They're working on themselves. And I talked about this in my video on the 4 types of men to avoid, right? The disorganized man is not able to organize his life or have a sense of his himself and what he wants and what he's ambitious towards. Okay. Also, um, again, how do they deal with their own emotions? How do they deal with conflict and communicating, having difficult conversations, right? Men and women communicate differently. They don't communicate in the exact same way, but you both need to be working on communication. Okay. So that's the 5th step. The 6th step is learning to communicate and deal with conflict. There's been a myth that women sometimes believe, which is that they are better, quote unquote, communicators than men. But part of what makes you a good communicator is not your gender, but it's how you're able to manage yourself, how you're able to deal with conflict. Okay. How you're able to share what you need and have difficult conversations, which requires, there's that V word again, vulnerability. Okay. How to do those things in a relationship. It's not a natural born skill. It's a skill that we may have to cultivate. We may have to relearn. We may have to make like some changes in how we're doing it. Okay. So it's not automatic that because you're a woman or because you verbalize how you feel, that means you are a good communicator in your relationship or you know how to deal with conflict. Okay. We all have to learn how to deal with difficult emotions, difficult conversations, disagreements, but to be able to do it in a way where we can compromise, where we can share what we need, and where we can see the other person's perspective. And that's regardless of if you're in a long-term committed relationship, if you're dating, if you're in a relationship with yourself, you're going to have to learn how to communicate, deal with feelings, and deal with conflict. Okay. And the seventh step, seventh shift you're going to have to make to transform your relationship life is having boundaries, balanced, healthy boundaries. Okay. Not barriers. Barriers are different from boundaries. Boundaries say, I respect myself, I respect you, and I am going to model for you how to respect me. Barriers are, I'm closed off, I'm hardened, I don't trust anybody, so I'm going to create a wall and you're not going to get past it. Okay? That is not healthy. Okay? Boundaries are the key to loving yourself and loving your partner. They allow you to say, these are my limits. What I would like to know what your limits are too. It's a two-way street. It's not just you have boundaries, you say no, and then you don't respect the other person's boundaries. So when you have healthy boundaries, it's a dance. It's a dance around communicating, understanding what you need, communicating what you need, and trying to understand what the other person needs so you can respect and honor that. And when something is a non-negotiable for you, communicating that and learning also where you can have some flexibility. Because especially if you're in a long-term relationship, if you're in a marriage, what was a boundary in the first year, it may shift in year 5, 7, 10, 15, or 20. Okay. So boundaries are fluid, but it's important that you have like a core sense of what is non-negotiable for you at this stage in your life. Boundaries will literally transform how you communicate in your life, in your relationship, how you get your needs met, and how you reciprocate in meeting your partner's needs. Okay. That involves knowing what you want to say no to, practicing saying no, opening yourself up to be able to say yes, first and foremost, to yourself and what you need for yourself and your well-being, but also taking the risk at times, the risk to be able to say yes to your partner while still maintaining your sense of self. Now, this is something that I go deeply into in my Boundaries to Bliss programs, my Boundaries to Bliss boot camp, as well as my Boundaries to Bliss inner circle membership, because it takes a lot of coaching to be able to balance who you are, maintaining yourself as a person, but also being connected to another person where you don't lose yourself, but you don't become too rigid where you're never willing to meet that person halfway, right? It's a real balancing act. And that's my sweet spot. I love coaching women on that sweet spot and walking that tightrope with grace and ease. Okay? So this is the book that breaks it down for you, the Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint for women who are finally ready to win at love. And I just broke down for you the 7 steps or shifts to make that are going to transform your relationship life. All right? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, and don't forget the link to buy the book and all the bonuses is in the notes below. And then if you really want to join one of the Boundaries programs to go even beyond the book, you'll see the link there. You can also comment and I will reach out to you, or you can book a call on my website. Okay. drnicolemontero.com. Take care, everybody. I will see you in the next video.